Mark your calendars. The AZ Oktoberfest 2025 is happening 31st of October to November 2nd at the iconic Nitro Compound in Maricopa, Arizona. This track is next level with huge elevation, massive jumps, and fast technical layouts that keep the action intense all weekend long. Add some night racing under the lights and perfect fall desert weather with temperatures from 70s to the low 80s, and you have the ultimate RC weekend. Classes include novice, sportsman, intermediate, pro, 40 plus, short course truck, and you have the open class. This is for any skill level as a second buggy class. And of course, they have a 16 and under class with their dedicated 16 and under final. Race and hang out with RC stars like Ryan Mayfield, Spencer Rivkin, Spencer Heckert, Camden Lime, and the Iceman, Mason Fuller. They have a massive raffle from all the sponsors that participated, live coverage by Mod Live Media. This is one race you don't want to miss. Follow the Nitro Compound on Facebook and Instagram for more details, and get ready to send it at the AZ Oktoberfest.
Nitro is the glory, but e-buggy pays the bills. Welcome to the No Name RC Podcast. Get ready for some serious bench racing. But be warned, we speak our minds, express our thoughts, and sometimes things can get a little rowdy.
Hate, and he just was influenced by the hate coming from the left, the hate coming from the right.
And let's get back to more club racing and less of this race.
It's hard not to be arrogant when you're always right. See what I mean? That's exactly why people call you Arrogant Max.
You may not agree with everything we say, but it's definitely worth a listen.
And our pick, can you stop whatever you're doing?
Join your host, Lefty the Great, with co-hosts and guests as they get together to chat RC.
Hey, after that race that I watched this morning, I have to talk about it.
Here we go. $100 right here, $100 bill. Oh no!
I like this.
Yes, indeed. Nitro's the glory, but e-buggy pays the bills. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another episode of No Name RC Podcast. And I think you guys are going to like this one because I thoroughly enjoyed it. I'd like to say a big shout out and thank you to Matt from SOTA Products, SOTA RC Racing Products. You'll find out what SOTA means in this podcast. But if you guys don't know who he is, he's the man behind the shock inserts for the I want to call it progressive dampening, but it's really good. He breaks it all down. It's a really good product. I hope you guys enjoy it. But before we do that, I have to say thank you to all of the NNRC squad around the world. I see you guys hitting that sub, like, and notification button on the YouTubes. We greatly appreciate it. 8K is on the way. And hopefully 10K at some point. A big shout out to the patrons of the No Name RC podcast, as well as YouTube members. You get early access to this podcast. We greatly appreciate your extra support. If you like what we're doing, you can find the links in the written description and support us a little bit more. Also, a big shout out to the sponsors of the podcast. Without them, none of this is possible. Shout out to our title sponsor, J Concepts, High Tech RCD, Sidewinder Fuels, Laterra Racing, Invisible Speed, ML Toys, Dollar Hobbies, Side Piece Racing, Get Shit Done Coffee, Techno RC, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Mayako, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, and Clinic RC. As I said, after watching Instinct RC's video on the SOTA Shock Inserts, talking to my friend Salty Joe, my buddy Kevin Mendez, and how much they like these shock inserts, I decided to have a chat with Matt, and it was a good chat. He goes into some science mode for you guys. Those of you who are on the fence or maybe trying the SOTA Shocks, I hope you guys try them. You can purchase them from him directly in Australia. I'll leave a link for that in the written description of this podcast. It was a good chat with Matt. I hope you guys enjoy it. And let's get to that podcast, brought to you by J Concepts. Joining me in the virtual studio today is a man all the way from Australia. Actually, right now, it's 9:30 in the morning, Wednesday. He's in the future. And it's 7:30 p.m. here, Tuesday. But his product has kind of taken the RC world by storm, the SOTA Shock Inserts. I'd like to introduce the man behind them, Mr. Matt Austin. How you doing, Matt?
Well, thanks, Lefty. G'day from Australia. Thanks for having me on.
Yes. How is it in the future? Can you tell me what's going to happen?
Well, in the future, it's pretty cold here, and but it is sunny, so it's a nice day.
It's your winter, right, over there in
It is
Australia.
our winter at the moment, and it's a pretty chilly winter. I'm in Melbourne, Australia, so it gets pretty chilly down here.
Okay.
The guys up north don't get as cold, but we're a big country.
You know what? I think people don't realize how big Australia really is. It takes like 5.5 hours to fly across it.
Yeah. Perth to Melbourne, it's about a 4 or 5 hour flight, depending on headwinds.
It's pretty decent size, I'd say. A whole lot of nothing in the middle. That's where the fire scene is.
There is a lot of nothing between Perth and Melbourne. You don't see a lot. It's just red dirt.
All right. Well, it's good to have you on. We're recording this just before the ABC race that's being happening at Pine Hills Dirt. Are you going to that?
No. Unfortunately, I was very tempted to. There's a few guys racing the product there, but look, I'm still sort of 50-50. I may, but SOTA will certainly be well represented up there, so it'll be good.
Yeah, I was before I came on here, I was recording with Pecco. We was talking about the European Championships. He's actually going to go to this race. I'm not sure when this is going to come out. I hope it comes out before that, but it probably won't. It might come out after that. If you do go, have fun. It's a great looking facility, nice oil track, and I really love what the Asian Buggy Championship, and I'm hoping to get over to the Philippine rounds next year for it. All right. I always like to start this off. I know you're a racer, so maybe tell us a little bit about yourself, how long you've been racing, and then we'll get right into the nitty gritty with the SOTA Shock Inserts.
Right. I'll use the term racer loosely. I'm not really. I'm more of a hack than a racer, and the guys that race with me at our local track, EMCC, they'll certainly agree to that. But I'm 52. And I used to run sort of RC when I was a kid. So the first RC I had was probably was the Tamiya Wild Willie, or a version of the Wild Willie. I think it was called a Maverick or something like that, but I don't know. It was old one. And then the first decent sort of RC I had after that was a Kyosho Javelin, which I've got the replica of just over there. And that was a nice little car. And then sort of took a break for 30 odd years and did other things, and then got back to RC in probably when I was sort of early 40s. And I was sort of bashing, and the cars have got a lot faster since then. And I nearly skittled my daughter with the car one day, just running it on a sort of a track. And I thought, no, this is dangerous. So I decided to go to a racetrack and sort of turned my bashing into racing, and haven't looked back since then. So I've been racing the cars and giving them a good old spin. So I had my first run on the track in about 6 months, just 2 weekends ago, which was good fun. But it's a great hobby sport, however you look at it. But it's good fun.
Absolutely. I mean, I love it, and I've gotten to know quite a few Australian racers in my time, and it's great because now we're seeing a resurgence in kind of the Australian RC scene after COVID. So I know a lot of the Australian guys over there, and it's good I'm hoping to get over there myself one day. But really good stuff. I always say this: you can leave RC, but it never leaves you. You eventually come back to it at some point in your life.
Yeah, it's interesting. You see, I don't know, people sort of go through cycles, and it might be with other hobbies as well, but we see people sort of come in and back out, and then they come back again. So they may take a year off or something, and then eventually you see them sort of come back into the hobby and give it another go. But it's It is big. Queensland, so our other states, Queensland and say Perth and Adelaide are quite big with RC, or South Australia is big with RC. Melbourne with 1/8, it's not as big, arguably, but 1/10 is certainly a very big, has a big following down here. It's you get a lot of people at those races.
You got a pretty big race coming up there for 1/10 here in September,
Yes.
October. So
Yeah, I think October in Sydney, we've got the Worlds, which will be, and looking at that track, it looks great.
I mean, wouldn't it be great if the Australian guy Lachlan wins there? Like, that would be awesome.
Lachlan Monday.
Lachlan, he won in the
Monday?
Monday. It's the other Donovan Lachlan.
Donovan Lachlan.
Yeah, he drives.
Okay.
Yeah, he actually won the warm up there recently when Spencer Rivkin and all the Americans came over for the warm up. He's pretty fast. That's his home track, so it'd be interesting.
He'll have a hometown advantage, I'm sure.
Hey, that's all a part of it. That's all a part of it.
Well, and that's it's been to explain to me by a couple of pros that you've got to know the dirt you're racing on. The European dirt is different to the American dirt, and maybe Australian dirt's different again. So
there you go. There you go. All right. So you get back into RC. You're racing. You're enjoying it. I see you got an e-buggy. So do you just run electric classes, or do you run any of the nitro classes?
I'm just e-buggy. It's for me, it's a lot simpler. I like the noise of the nitro, but I just don't like the tuning side of it. I could never quite get. And if time is sort of precious outside of the racing, tuning nitros and what have you, logistically it's a lot more difficult for me and for others, I guess, with pit requirements and things like that. So e-buggy is nice and simple. Plug it in, away you go.
Absolutely. All right.
Yeah.
So the reason we're here is to talk about SOTA. Maybe we can start with that. What does it mean? What does SOTA mean?
SOTA is state of the art. So when so my son came up with that name. So my 13-year-old son. So at the time, he was 12 odd. That I wanted a name that sort of kept true to what I wanted to achieve, and my goal was to make products that any driver could feel on the track. So it had to make a change. Now, whether it was good or bad didn't really matter, but you had to feel it on the track. There's probably been times when I bought upgrades and you get it, and then some of them, they cost a lot of money, and you get it on the track and you scratch your head and you think, didn't really do much for me. And you've just paid, say, Aussie dollars, you may have paid $150 for something that really had questionable advantages for you on the track as a hack or maybe as a pro, I don't know, but certainly for me personally, I've run options that really didn't give me my bang for buck. And with this product, certainly with the testers, their requirement was no BS. Give me an honest feedback on how this product is working and whether you can feel the differences on the track. And this, without a doubt, you can feel it. It's the current setups I've got. There's no way you can't feel the changes on the track. It's pretty awesome.
Awesome. We're going to get into that because I've had a lot of people talk about it and that they like it. I guess I really like the name State of the Art. I think that's awesome. Love it. You have a 13-year-old son now? Still?
Yes.
I do too. And all he wants to do is game.
Yeah. I've tried to get him into RC. He's a little bit resistant. He's more into it's what his mates are doing. So he loves his basketball and his mountain biking. So he's into mountain biking.
Cool. Well, mine's into gaming. He wouldn't even leave the game alone. He's really good at it though. But good name. Tell him great name. State of the Art.
Thank you.
So I guess when did this all start? And did you make any other products prior to this, or was the goal to make what you have now?
The goal. So I guess the initial. I've always been all right. So of the RC, you look at the advancements they've made. So again, sort of 52 in the early. If I look at the early Javelin, brushed motors, a manual speedo, it was a mechanical type of ESC, no electric speedos back then. And you see where we've got to with, say, brushless lipos, transmitters, you're no longer pulling crystals and things like that. You see the big advancements we've made, and then after 30 years, you get into the vehicle and you look at it and go, great. And then you look at the shocks and you think, the shocks haven't changed. And those original shocks in their format, it's basically 100-year-old technology. And so that one always troubled me. And I always sort of looked at that and thought, oh, surely we've got something better. And during COVID, Jared Tebow, because all the tracks were on lockdown and what have you, certainly down here, but Jared Tebow did a number of videos. In one of those videos, it was a question and answer, and someone asked, all right, do you tune your buggy or your shocks for bumps or jumps? And he responded, jumps. He would tune the shocks more for jumps. So I heard that, and I sort of didn't really, respect the answer, obviously, but I thought, well, why can't we have both? So that's sort of sort of sowed the seed for me to sort of start thinking about, how we can do something better. Certainly, what was currently in the market couldn't do that. Couldn't cater for both bumps and jumps. So it didn't start straight away, but just that little seed was there, and I don't know, I just couldn't get away from it. So I was just always sort of ticking away. So then a period of time later, I started the process of just running sort of prototypes and testing how we could get bumps and jumps into the one shock.
I gotta ask before we go on, what is your background? Like, what do you do full time, or are you like an engineer? Are you just a hobbyist, an engineer, or where did this come from?
My background is in construction, so say 30 years in construction, sort of large project construction. But that's not really. So I work with a lot of engineers. My degree is not in engineering, but I like to tell people that my degree's in sort of lateral thinking. So I'm that one person that would sort of look at something a little bit differently to other people. So I just don't. It's not the way my brain sort of works. I'm always trying to look at something a little bit differently. Now, the guys I work with probably say that I look at it in a negative sense, but I just have a different view on certain problems. So, but the mechanical side of things, and you'll hear me reference sometimes Model T Fords or very old cars. And so I grew up, my dad used to restore and drive Model T Fords. So I've had from say the year when I was about 8, I knew how to replace the bands on a Model T Ford with the bands with for the transmission. So that's how they activated their transmission between high, low, reverse, brakes, and what have you. So I got that sort of mechanical understanding from that more so than what I do in my day job.
Thank you, Hi-Tech RC, for all your continued support, and congratulations on becoming a European champion with the Viking, David Ronnefauk. If you're looking for some top-tier performance and reliability in your RC setup, Hi-Tech RCD has you covered with industry-leading chargers and servos for both surface and air applications. Whether you're bashing, racing, or taking to the skies, Hi-Tech's advanced technology delivers precision, power, and durability when you need it most. From high-torque servos to smart, efficient charging solutions, trust Hi-Tech to keep you in control. Hi-Tech, powering passion, elevating performance. Visit them at www.hightechrcd.com today and let them know that Lefty sent you. So you're during COVID, you heard Jared Tebow's talk about bumps and jumps. Take me through the process, because I want to know how you go from that to the product that we have now.
A lot of experimentation. So my first, I thought I had it with the first one, and I probably should have had this on the screen, but my first, I don't know if that comes up, but that was the first prototype I did. It was on an FDM printer, like the filament type printers, 3D printers, and it was just the slot. And I spent a lot of time developing how I could optimize this slot. And I thought that was easy. That would have been a cheaper answer to where we could have a softer sort of damping feel in the middle for the bumps, and we can then, for when it loads up and you get a bigger sort of bump or a jump, you'll get a different damping feel either end of those slots. And that's a common sort of tuning device in modern shocks, in some modern shocks. But it had limitations. So as I tested it, I built myself a dyno, and that was critical for testing. Both in the dyno and on the track, that had a lot of limitations, and particularly around other problems we have or challenges we have with our shocks, being the O-rings, the seals. O-rings aren't necessarily great in. They're great if you've got a sort of rotational type of action and it'll seal, but this sort of linear type motion, the O-rings aren't ideal in terms of sealing. So what you'd have with a configuration like this is with the piston holes the way they are, you would get a lot of suction, and that suction would draw air into the piston, and then it will just aerate the shock. Or you'd get a lot of rebound, and it would just start just effectively pumping oil back out of the shock. And a few of these prototypes, after about 2 or 3 laps, it just faded and basically turned to crap. So that was a little disheartening, and I sort of almost was at the point where this just isn't going to work, and that's where I was on holiday at the time, and I was sort of thinking about it and thinking about whether I'm going to proceed or give it away, and that's where I came up with this idea of, rather than pushing the oil through the piston, or the oil, technically speaking, the piston travels through the oil, not the other way around. But if I could balance those forces a little bit more, balance the pressures, I could remove that aeration of the shock, and that's where this second chamber came into play. And that as soon as I got home from holidays, I quickly run up a few prototypes, got them on the track, got them on the dyno, and that really it changed a lot. And what you see now is still not what was. It wasn't just that step from that to what you see now. There are probably another 300 prototypes, physical prototypes, that still had to go through their stages. So I took a photo on this desk, and I kept them all. I kept not all, but a lot of them, and I've actually got a photo of all the prototypes all lined up and all getting to that final one. And I think I counted about 400 odd that I'd printed.
Oh wow!
Yeah, well, so it was a lengthy process. So but it had to be right. And so again, that's why that SOTA sort of stuck in my head. No point rushing it. Easy to get to market with this, and sort of flog this as the next best thing. But it's not. It's after a few laps on the track, again you look at it and go, why did I just spend all this money for this? And it's just not working. So that's not not how I wanted to do it. Not how I was going to launch a product.
All right. I want to retract a little bit. So you wanted to improve the shocks.
Mm-hmm.
And we've seen companies come in with different shock and ideas and trying to mimic full-scale shocks and whatnot. Where did the idea of putting an insert into the shock come from? And how did that come about?
So there were I guess the goal was to produce something that you could see on the track and you get a performance improvement or a difference in performance. Good or bad, it could go either way. You don't have to like this shock. But it also had to be reasonably cheap. I have seen products out in the market where for 2 shocks you could pay $700 for. No one's going to, that's cost prohibitive to 99% of the racers out there. If you pay $1,500 for a shock for a 900 US kit, that doesn't work either. So the idea was it had to be you could take the existing shock body and be able to upgrade it. So that was the other design requirement. You had to upgrade. I didn't want to reinvent the shock. I wanted to just enhance the shock. And that's why, and that's where the patent comes into the how you can stick that into an existing shock and get a completely different shock. But that is arguably very similar to what you would get with a full-blown Fox shock or King shock to an extent. I would argue in terms of their internal bypass systems, mine probably has more tunability than a Fox internal bypass. But this in the States, I think at the moment is about $130 for a full set. The Fox full-size shocks could cost you $5,000 US, and you'll get a very similar sort of performance with this. Some would say no, but I've tested these on a dyno, and it's surprising how much you can get from this and the tunability options. No, you don't get these little dials, but if I could probably do little dials of low speed, high speed, but that's a very, very, very difficult. Not a difficult, but the performance gains probably wouldn't be as noticeable as what you would get with these, how I've got the system set up now. So, yeah. So it's down to a cost benefit, well, bang for buck.
Yeah, it makes sense. I know the shocks you're talking about. My buddy Wally tried them, and I remember people were excited about them because this is something that we hear a lot. Like, when are the shocks going to be different? When are the shocks going to be better? We see, how about those? Like, we have the MIP bypass systems. We have different pistons, VRP, all this type of stuff. But this is the first time we're seeing an insert for the shock. And I assume when you say the dials are pretty much there's rubber. I don't know the word you call them, the grommets I want to call them, or the inserts that are in the inserts. I think that's what they're called.
Oh, for mine.
Yes, for yours. So the dial.
Yeah, I call them inserts. So I call the sleeve. So that technically you could probably say the sleeve is the insert, and the inserts are pills.
Pills. That's better.
Yeah. So I have various thickness pills, as well as various. I am designing various pills that have different type of, that may do different things as well. And I could probably show you one that I'm doing for the 1/5 guys. I'm getting a lot of interest from 1/5, and that's completely different again, how I'm going to approach that challenge.
So the pills are the dials, pretty much. The
pills are the dials in a sense, and the reason, and one of the earlier prototypes, and I have one around here somewhere, but the sleeve itself had screws, and we could screw. So you can see. Oh, that's great. Yeah. So where those pills were, instead they were. It's just a screw, a grub screw. But the grub screw, it had the guys testing it. So I had about 7 or 8 testers, some key testers as well as other testers. And the feedback, because the screw, the actual thread, very fine threads, they tended to work their way out during racing, or because it is such a fine thread. The fine grub screw, if you buggered up that grub screw and it got locked into the thread, you're not getting that out, and you've just gone and you've destroyed a sleeve with this grub screw. So and then you've got feeler gauges, because you don't need a lot of movement in some of these hole diameters, or in my case, this sort of orifice or flow valve, to change the damping curve. So this was a sort of a set and forget. You could just plug them in, and you could get the damping type of feel that you wanted, and it's just a more robust type of way of doing it in the 1/8 application. So far more durable. Just plug them in, and the picture you got there has the 3 inserts, or technically 4 if you take one out. But in about I think about six weeks we'll have 8 inserts now. So I've got 3 more on the way.
Okay, so maybe talk me through how this works. Like, I'm an idiot, right? So obviously this is the bottom of the shock, the red pill. Then we have the blue pill, and then we have the pink pill. Then we have some holes right here, slotted holes. We have a horizontal one in the middle, and then we have a diagonal one at the top. I assume that's the top. So how? Just explain. So I'm assuming the piston pushes the oil through the slots, or how does it? What's the? I want to know how it works. All right. So you have this video of the pistons and the oils with some little glitter in here, so it's more visible. Maybe you can walk us through the process here.
Okay. All right, now this is on my YouTube, but and by the way, this glitter absolutely tore the piston apart. It's like little metallic, and when you see how fast this goes, you can see why it really did rip ripped that whole thing to shreds. But what effectively you have is 3 individual zones. So in position sensitive damping, say your big Fox ones, they would have different zones for their damping, and the chronology of the damping was that you had sort of the orifice pistons, which is what we've got now. I'm talking full size shocks. And then they moved into the shim stack type arrangements that you have now, although there are variations. And then position sensitive damping came into more for off-road. So you won't see really position sensitive in on-road. It's more for an off-road because of the extreme situations between sort of small bumps and then big jumps, obviously. So what this gives is 3 clearly different damping feels. So depending on the position of the piston, not the speed of the piston. So speed sensitive is just about every damper or shock, and position sensitive is specifically where that piston is inside that body. So here you can see the fluid, and what you should see is the fluid as the piston moves through, and you won't see the piston necessarily unless you've got really good eyes, but you'll see how the flow, it's flowing in one zone as where the piston moves through, and then it will move to the next zone and the next zone as it travels. And the idea is that as the piston, I'll show you a cutout of what this looks like, but you can see how if I play that, you can see how the different fluids are moving. I don't know if you can see that. And as you can see there,
I can see it.
They can go quicker, and then that's obviously going really quick. The part of that video you don't see is right at the end where the actual whole thing blows apart. So I blew the seals at that point. You're pushing some pretty serious kilograms or pounds there. So, but that shows how those different zones interact with the piston. So they are purely, so where the piston is, say in that purple zone, that's a freer sort of piston, so that'll be nice and smooth. Mm-hmm. Then as the piston gets between those 2 slots, it's then the blue insert or pill will determine the flow type there, and the piston moves up higher again and into the red, which is a thicker pill again. That will then obviously dictate how the damping forces are sort of regulated there. So the way the flow works, and if I can pull up my other file.
So basically, from what I'm understanding right now, the first part is for those short, like I shouldn't say short, but there's quick bumps. Like if it was going like that, so it moves. It has the viscosity, or not viscosity that I'm looking for. Not the word, because it's all the same shock viscosity, but has that faster movement at the bottom. And faster movement at the bottom. I'm not sure where the middle is, and then I would assume that the top one is for those jumps, hard landings, or there's big hits, there's big holes that you're hitting. Maybe I'm wrong.
It all depends on what you want. This can be tuned for however many ways you want. I've got now 9 inserts if you include the no insert. 9 times 9 times 9. You've got 700 variations of how you want to change that shock damping curve. It's not that it's not overcomplicated, but
right, I get it.
You can change the sort of how this thing operates depending on what you want. Okay, so you can see that.
Yes.
All right. Now I'm new at Fusion 360, so this was one of the learning curves I had to endure to develop this product. But it's certainly fantastic for product development. Now these are the different inserts I'm looking at. Actually, I add a orange one. So these are all the different inserts, and as you can see here, they've all got different thicknesses. So we start with our the thinnest of the inserts or pills, and that's a 0.8 millimeters, and that therefore makes a bigger opening and therefore easier flow. So obviously, the bigger the hole, the more fluid can pass through with less resistance. And then we step them up, and I've got them stepping up now in 0.1 millimeter of an increment, and that 0.1 on the dyno or on the testing will give about a 10-12% increase in damping force. So as you close the hole, you've got more resistance to flow, and then therefore the forces will jack up as that closes. So my current thickest insert was the red, and that's very similar to an 8x1.2 angled piston. But now I've got this new one coming along, which is the big grey, and this one, so that's 1.4 millimeters thick. This one's 1.6. That 0.2, because of the rounding and we're actually closing off that area a lot more, that one almost has twice the damping force as the red. So it's about 1.8 times more. So this is where position sensitive is. This is why it's used on just about every rally car, rally raid, Dakar, trophy truck, you name it, off-road. I can go from down here, from a no insert to for that thickest grey insert, I can increase the damping force within the shock about 5 times. So I can conceivably go from a 300 CST, say, in the shock to a 1500 CST. And that's something that no typical speed sensitive shock can do.
So in my brain, which isn't very smart, each pill is like a different piston size or different oil viscosity. If I was to put it in layman's terms, so
different piston size.
Okay, so you can.
So these represent, these represent, and I can show another file later. And I've actually I benchmarked these. So these are all benchmarked on existing pistons. So the red was benchmarked on an angled piston, 8x1.2 angle. The blue was set on about an 8x1.2 just straight through piston. And thickness of the piston does change. So a 2.2 piston will be different to a 2.5, for example, in thickness. Purple was a 8x1.3 or a 5x1.5, and then these ones are getting into your sort of your really bumpy type tracks. So that's the 5x1.6, 6x1.6. So they're all got similar sort of piston feels.
So I get it. It's basically like having a different piston at different stages of the stroke of the shock.
Yeah, correct. So, and as you can see here with that cutout, so with this, here's the piston here. Now, it's so when a piston moves through that shock body, the oil isn't really moving. So the piston moves through the oil. The oil doesn't move through the piston, and that's a sort of a funny way of saying it. But and so what the current pistons do with the holes, because they're a smaller hole, the way fluid works is to move that volume of fluid through those smaller holes. pressure builds up in ahead of the piston. If it's moving towards the top, the pressure builds up. Now, as it passes through those holes, the pressure will drop and the velocity increases. And if the velocity increases a lot, you get a lower pressure. Now, as that piston moves up, you can get a vacuum type effect behind the piston. So you get drag, and that really high velocity of the oil, you'll get a very low pressure, and that's where you get the cavitation, or the not cavitation in the truest sense. And I won't go. I try not to go too nerdy, but you'll get an aeration. So the oil itself, our silicon oils, and even normal shock oils, they could contain up to, say, 20% in air of the total volume of your bottle of oil, and those little bubbles of air that you don't see expand, and that's where you get that aeration, and they collapse again when it goes back into rebound. But sometimes that negative type of air pressure, because you've got air pressure outside, you've got 14 psi, say, at sea level, that's all trying to get into that negative space, and as it draws in the air. So by pushing the oil up and through the first port and then back around, you reduce that differential in pressures. So this is using a sort of a different methodology. It's a what I call a lower velocity type of damping. So I can, and because the piston itself is a smaller size, it's about 30% smaller than a 15.85. I'm getting the same force for a less piston size, so therefore I'm getting a lower velocity of the oil. So I'm not stretching the oil, and I'm not aerating it as much as a standard piston. Hopefully that wasn't too nerdy.
No, I get it. So there's no holes in the piston at all, right?
No holes, no holes in compression. And that's not that is not new. There are some very high performance racing shocks out there, on-road racing shocks, that use what they call a solid piston. And a lot of the modern shocks now, they don't rely on. So we all talk about shim stacks, and they're easy. They're easy to make. Just that they're hard to tune. But you can do all sorts of things with shim stacks. But a lot of the bigger builders are actually using these external dials, and they're relying on damping. They're relying on altering the damping curves by limiting the displacement, the fluid displacement. So as as the piston moves up through the body of the shock, it's displacing fluid, because the shock shaft's entering the body of the shock, and it's displacing fluid, and that fluid's got to move somewhere. So what the big modern shocks do, as that displaces, it's got to go through valving, and they change the rate of how that damper moves by limiting the displacement of the fluid. So you've got on-road Porsche GT3 Cup type races that are using solid pistons.
So I think I have it because, like I said, so you're pushing it up, fuel comes out through these slots, goes back down. It fills in that cavity as it goes up. So when it comes down, it has some resistance. So when it comes down, the oil's going back through the slots again. I assume, or from the bottom. How does it work?
When it's in rebound, it's there is a shim. So you've got a choice. You go either there are what I call bleed holes, and the fluid will effectively travel through the path of least resistance. So it either can go through the shim, through the holes, and obviously it's like the shim is essentially a flapper valve. It's not really offering any resistance. It's just a one-way valve effectively. And depending on how many holes you have open or closed, again on the dyno, I think I'm getting it up to about 30% more rebound speed with all the holes open. And so the fluid has two pathways to sort of travel in rebound, either through the piston or again through around the slots.
Okay, so the valve opens when obviously when it comes down, and then the oil goes through it and goes through the
Yeah,
slot.
yeah. So it operates. It's the same principle as what your MIP or your VRP pistons are doing. It's just a release valve.
So you said something. I'm sorry. You said something about the shock shaft, because I heard this a lot. Like some people don't like using 4mm shock shafts because of the oil displacement. They prefer 3.5, but this kind of eliminates that to an extent.
Yeah. I like the 4mm. I think there's nothing wrong with the 4mm. Some people might say the 4mm they don't like because you're adding to your unsprung weight, perhaps. That's part of your unsprung weight. But really, the difference between a 4mm and a 3.5, you're not talking a lot of weight. And honestly, the displacement isn't really that much. So in a dead shock, so for a dead shock, you're not really. So you can see the bladder up the top there. The bladder with a dead shock, the bladder doesn't compress really in its operation. It's expanding. So the idea of these big bladders, they're not working in a displacement sense. They're more working in an expansion. They don't contract. Sorry, they more expand. So it's sort of, if you had rebound, then the bladder would actually compress. But in a typical operation with a dead shock, it's in expansion only, because you've set the shock up to where you've got the shaft all the way in and you've bled the shock. So therefore, the bladder in theory is at its fullest, right? Then as you pull the shock down and the displacement, you've got the shaft leaving the body. So therefore, oil needs to fill. That bladder is actually being drawn into the shock body and expanding in a sense. And again,
that makes sense.
Nerdy. So when you see these bladders, these bigger sort of bladders, they're not really, all they're doing in a sense is creating a problem, because with a very hard bump, when the piston moves upwards, the fluid's obviously creating a force, a resistance, and that resistance is moving in 360 degrees. It's moving in every direction, and it's moving exceptionally quick. So if you've got 20 kilos of force on that piston, well, there's 20 kilos pushing on that bladder. So if you've got a big bladder, and that's why I don't like the unsupported bladders, it's just going to flatten that bladder. And there's many times where I've had my car, and you've opened up the shock tap and the bladder's flattened, and that's effectively because you've got 20 kilos pushing on that bladder. And it flattens the bladder, and when it flattens that, it's also creating a more negative pressure behind the piston. And again, we go through that whole aeration cycle. So when I say to people, I get a lot of questions on emulsion, bladder, which one's better? And I've tested emulsion and a reinforced bladder, my bladder, which is ribbed, so it's a very low profile. And I can't tell the difference. And that's within 10 grams. I can run them at certain speeds, and they are almost identical depending on how you fill your emulsion as well.
Okay.
So
now, so you have adjustments within the, I'm just, so people who are listening to this know, we have adjustments with the pills. You have adjustments with the flaps as well? So you can go obviously smaller, wider. That's for rebound. And then you have also the adjustment on the bladder. You have various different bladders, or you just have one bladder?
I just have the one bladder, although I am releasing a emulsion seal now.
Mm-hmm.
So the emulsion seal will just give you obviously then an emulsion shock if that's the way you want. And the reason I've done that is just because some of the bashers I'm looking at, they have an emulsion, but they don't have the ability to have a bladder. So to accommodate that market, I've done an emulsion, and also I've had a few questions on, I'd like to use emulsion, so that's fine if that's that's what the racers want. It all comes down to a personal preference. I'm not going to dictate that side of things. So, but yeah, so you've got the. Sorry, I don't know if that answered your question. Then
No, I get it. My next question was going to be about oil viscosity and weight. Now, is it like traditionally we change it? I mean, most people change it for ambient temperature. Do we tune the shocks with the oil weight the same way that we tune regular shocks now?
Yeah, I originally, so when I originally launched and we decided, that was with the in consultation with my trusted test team, but we thought that the 3 inserts were enough, and you could tune with the oils, and the oils give you quite fine sort of tuning variations. And again, I've done a video on that, but I think from memory you can get, depending on the oils, you can get about a 10% sort of difference in damping. They do change a bit as you get into the thicker oils, but my idea was that you could tune with a lot of oils, but there are certain racers that they prefer to have, say, 3 or 4 oils and tune with the pistons. So again, you have some that tune with oil, some that tune with pistons, and that's why I sort of got those more inserts coming along, or pills, to accommodate both those type of needs from the drivers.
Okay, so let's take some examples. Did you watch the recent European Championships?
Yes, I did. I can't say I sat through all the days of racing, but I certainly I watched the final. That was a great win for Mr. Ronnefolk in his X-ray.
So I guess my question would be, what would be your pill setup for a track like that? It's fairly smooth. It has some jumps. What would you be looking for in your pill package, I guess we can say?
Great question. I can may I share another file with you?
A big shout out to SidePieceRacing.com, North America's exclusive distributor for top tier brands like Awesomatics, Rocher, Wild Turbofan, Montec Racing, Corsatec, Phoenix Racing, and Wheel Speed. Whether you're seeking precision engineered car kits, high performance batteries, or aerodynamic bodies, we've got you covered. Enjoy fast shipping and exceptional customer service, ensuring you get the best gear when you need it. Visit SidePieceRacing.com today and race ahead of the competition. Let them know you heard about it from Lefty on the No Name RC podcast. Also, a big shout out to our Swedish hobby shop friends over there in Sweden. Step up your RC racing with Latera Racing, one of Sweden's premier hobby shops and tracks dedicated to racers, featuring top brands like Hobbywing, X-Ray, Zoo Racing, and Team Coyote. They provide everything you need, from precision chassis to high-performance electronics. Whether you're at the track or upgrading your setup, Latera Racing caters to racers to demand the best. Visit latera.se or stop by our shop and check for the ultimate RC experience. Latera Racing, built for winners.
So in answer to your question, all right, so we had the Euro. So we had so that course was quite a high grip, good size jumps. So in the case of that, you would want a fairly. I would start with. So we'd start with our bottom out zone, which is when the car's going to land. You would want a high level of damping force. So this would be a very traditional way that you would have the damper set up for a sort of your trophy trucks or your rally cars. This is how they would sort of set up, how they'd set up their car. So I've got this spreadsheet, and I've just developed this the other day for a guy. But I would be using this new grey insert because this thing is just a ripper in terms of how much damping force it produces. So at the front, at the top, I would put a grey, which would then allow a lot of force. So you don't necessarily want the vehicle to chassis slap. As soon as the chassis hits the ground, you're gonna scrub speed off your vehicle. So, and depending on how grippy that track is, I know our track, when we oil it, the oil gets onto the chassis itself, and then your chassis hits oil, this grippy type of oily substance on oil, it really has a lot of friction, and it can slow down your vehicle. So chassis slaps you try and avoid. Certainly I do. So at the front you want that grey, and here it provides a force at a given speed, so, and with a given oil. So on a 500 CST, this is generating at 130 millimeters maximum velocity, 3.55 kilos of force. So in the middle, depending on how you want to do it, I might say I want a white, and in the rear I might want a little. So a white will give less damping. So here you've got 1.7, so you're almost half of what the grey is. So in the bottom out zone, if you look to your right, you'll see the little diagram there of the zones. In that bottom out or that top zone, it'll be very, very firm damping. So your landing will be nice. You won't just plow into the ground. But in the ride zone, you want more mechanical grip. So 3 types of grip: tire grip, your mechanical grip, and your aero. I'll argue that we don't really have aero. People will say those wings are providing massive amounts of downforce. They're not really. We're not doing fast enough speeds to get any meaningful downforce or aero. So you're really, for the fast lap times, you're relying on your tyres and you're relying on your mechanical grip. So a mechanical grip is that sort of that roll. You want the body to roll and achieve more grip. And a lot of good YouTube videos out there on the full size type with say Hyundai Rally. They talk about mechanical grip and how they balance between mechanical grip and steering. So that's another topic, and I'm trying not to get too nerdy. But for the rear, I will go, say, looser again. So typically you'll be a bit looser in the rear or a bit freer in the rear, just to let that little bit more roll, and you might get a little bit more grip in the rear. So I might put a blue. And then again, for the top out zone is when the suspension is fully extended. I might, for this one, go grey again. And what that will do is when the buggy lands, it'll be in that full top out zone. So the piston's right at the bottom, and you'll get a lot of damping initially, and that enables the tyres to get that. You get more force into the tyres earlier, which means you should get more grip because you got more weight into that tyre, and you should be able to then get on the gas a little bit earlier. But you'll still maintain, when it gets into that ride zone, you'll still maintain that roll. So this is where the beauty of the sort of the position sensitive come in. If you look at a traditional sort of handling chart, for sort of lower grip or for more grip, you need a softer type of setup. For a high grip or for big jumps, you need a harder type of setup. This you can get both, so you can still have. You can't, even on a high grip setup, you just can't load a 8x1.2 and put 1,000 CST. You can't have, the vehicle will just skate. It'll just be like a go-kart. And there's videos out there of Formula Ones where they've just locked out their shocks. Or Do RC did a very good video on this product, and he locked out the shocks, and he showed how the thing would just skate all over the place. Off-road, if you lock out the shock, you're just going to skate everywhere, and you're not going to get that mechanical grip. You won't get the roll. So your lateral forces will just continue laterally, and you're not really directing it into the tire itself. So you need some body roll. Even Formula One needs body roll to get that mechanical grip when they get into the slower speeds and they lose their aero. So in this particular case, I've got grey, and a white and a blue. And you can see here, I've got in the middle zone, in our ride zone, we've got about a 1.7 kilograms of force at that speed. But then at either end, I've got a lot of force. That means I can do those nice big jumps. It will land like you're on a cushion of air type thing. It'll be a nice sort of 4-point landing. Now, for the pros, probably not as essential, because the pros land really nicely. They can land the jump faces really nicely. It's sort of when you get into sort of my skill, where if you're landing flat, this is why you will feel it. The people like me of my skill set, I can feel this more than say a pro might, because they're landing nicely. They're not generating that same piston forces because they're going down the jump faces nicely, but even they will benefit from it. But so here we've got grey, white, grey, blue, grey. I'm sorry, you probably can't see my cursor, but in the rear, and that'll give us that roll in the middle zone, and then we can load up at either end. So a very nice type of land jump as well. So you're not going to plow into the jump face, as well as then the landing. You're going to have a lot more support when you land. Hopefully that made sense.
No, I get it. So I get it. I understand that part of it. If it was a more bumpy track with probably big jumps, you would actually go for probably a softer setup at the top. Maybe not at the top, but I get it. I would have to play with this. So let's
bumpy tracks.
Let's take a bumpy track. Exactly.
Yeah, so a bumpy track could be easy. Like I know I've got a couple of guys using it, and they're using the prototypes of the thicker oils. And so because of this, so you could go to, say, a black, and you might have in the rear, you might have an orange. And now you've got a freer area here, but then you've got a bigger difference. So what you can potentially do is have a very, very loose middle, and that'll absorb all the small bumps. You'll lose a bit in steering. That's just the reality. There's no such thing as the perfect shock. There's always going to be a compromise somewhere, but this will get you a little bit closer, or a lot closer. Certainly an off-road. But say some of the guys are running, say they would run a grey, or they might not be as aggressive here. They might have a yellow, and then if they want a little bit more, so if you look at your damping curves, if they're really sort of a high-speed bumps and not so much in the jumps, they might have a yellow, and then they might go to a black here. And what that does is, in the I usually go one less on the insert on the rear, and you might still have the grey, and that'll give you a good landing still. So you're not just going to smash through the landings, but your yellow will be a lot more compliant. So that's assuming the same CST. You can obviously change the oils. But what you're more looking at is these the percentage changes between the inserts. So here we're getting a what you would call a digressive curve as it goes from the middle ride zone into the bottom out zone where the shock is sort of moving all the way through. It's not going to load up, so it's not going to pack. It'll move through that zone a lot freer. So you can have a firmer type of setting in the middle, and and I say firmer in relation, it is firmer compared to what's above it. So you get a lot more suspension movement, and you see that on the track. You got guys, and I've had some feedback even from this weekend. I've had a guy from Canada, Ontario, greetings to him, and he was saying how his vehicle could just go through the bumps and he would get the suspension moving a lot better. And a lot of the guys were saying, how come your car is going through these bumps where ours is bucking and things like that. And that's where this works exceptionally well, is in the bumps, and hence why the position sensitive came about in the first place. Is you can sort of offload that type of pressure that's built up. So from the yellow to the black, I'm getting a 20% reduction in force. So in a speed sensitive shock, in a linear sense, the force is getting greater. In this particular case, as it clears into that new zone, it's actually getting less. So I'm getting a digressive type of feel in the shock, which is completely different to what you would get in a normal speed sensitive shock. Does that sort of make sense?
No, it makes sense. So my good friend in Bermuda, Salty Joe, he was telling me about this, and the track in Bermuda it's big, it's bumpy, it has a lot of those. It's like you be going at a good rate, and there's choppy bumps. Does that make sense?
Yep.
So, and that your car will bottom out and chassis slap, and then you'll get donkey flips and all this type of stuff.
Yep.
And he was telling me that his car, when he hits those bumps, it just stays flat. Like I guess the initial hit.
Sorry, he's using
your stuff. Yes, his name.
Oh, okay,
in Bermuda. Sorry, in Bermuda.
Hey, good on him.
So he's the one who kind of was explaining this to me, because that track's extremely rough, right? And they have big jumps too, and it's a lot of high speed choppy jumps. If you know what that like.
Yeah.
You go in and so that suspension's moving, so that force. I guess you need that softer force at the beginning, but you need that harder pack at the top, so it doesn't bottom out. I'm probably got this reversed somehow, but
and
in my brain it's working.
It depends on the driver, and it depends. I've had like if you looked at ABC New Zealand, Caleb had a certain setup. He wasn't having a good time with that one, but certainly Kyle McBride was using the system, and he had a different setup again, and his setup for New Zealand and his car looked great, and his setup, I think from memory, was reds at the top, and then he had a sort of a lighter sort of setting in the middles, and what he had almost, and again I'm going from memory, but it was sort of almost like this setting, so of a red purple, and that gave him a very free area where the shock could do for small frequency type jumps, so very, very small chattery type bump. Sorry, you could get that movement, so that the buggy could stay nice and calm. But then the bigger bumps, the red was there just to catch it, so you wouldn't just G out on the thing and throw the chassis in the air. So it all depends, and that's why I say to the guys with this, anyone who's using it, that patience is the key, and to not be afraid to try completely different sort of configurations. But certainly that configuration can work. Or I don't know what your mate in Bermuda is using, but other people have found that even they can go to a freer type of setup. Is what say I had before, where they might have that type of setup where it's a little bit firmer in the middle, so you still got your steering, but the bigger bumps you're not gonna pack the shock, and you get more movement. So you can change this. You can change essentially how you want that damping curve. You can have a progressive damping curve, linear, digressive in a sense, because these pills, and that's just the way how they operate, and that's where we get an advantage over an adjustable speed sensitive as such. These are still speed sensitive, but it's just the added benefit of this position that gives you more options, far more options to play with.
You said New Zealand from this year?
Yeah, New Zealand. The ABC in New Zealand.
Okay, so I'm going to bring it up, see if you can see McBride's
so if you looked at, and we had a couple of guys there. Certainly Kyle's car, his e-buggy, and that's the first time he drove that e-buggy too. He's never driven.
Okay, so you want to go to the e-buggy.
Yeah, his e-buggy. His e-buggy looked pretty good. And I think he was, he had a couple of, he had a tough Marshall. I think it was I don't know if he finished the Nitro, but certainly the e-buggy he did well. I think he may have even podiumed on that one. I think Jaden won that one from memory.
Jaden did win it. Jaden Edmund won it. Edmonds won it. I can't find e-buggy. What's going on here? Interesting stuff, man. Interesting. I just know that the track in Bermuda is extremely rough. And it always used to be, if I remember correctly, and I've watched videos, you can see the cars. I like to call it donkey kicking. So, that rear end hits and then that back goes up, and he is sworn on this, and he's letting other people drive it. But it all makes sense, right? Because it's just that piston. Sorry, as that piston moves up and pushes that oil through, it's meeting a different resistance at each section of the track. So it depends on the velocity that the piston's moving and the speed that it's moving, that it reacts to the oils and moving on. I understand it.
Techno RC. Techno RC is a championship-winning manufacturer of high-performance 8-scale, 10-scale, nitro, and electric RC buggies and trucks. With a worldwide dealer network, USA and Europe-based headquarters, comprehensive warranty program, and global race support, Techno RC is excellence in RC. View the full lineup of Techno RC race-proven vehicles by visiting www.technorc.com.
Yeah. So if you look at normal, and again, can you still see my screen?
I can bring it up.
So if you look at those basic damping curves, and if you look at, say, this is where most of our damping curves with a traditional piston is sort of sitting in that orange line, which is a linear type of line, or it's tending towards progressive, depending on the oil. It's another topic. We are not speed squared. We're not doing this purple. That doesn't exist in RC. I'm happy to have that debate with anyone, but of the 3,000 tests I've done, I have never got that curve. You'd have to fill your shock with water and put 0.1 millimeter holes, maybe, and then you'll get a curve like that. But our oil viscosities and silicon itself don't do that. This doesn't happen. But where I can get the curve is more that sort of digressive type of curve where, as the velocity increases, you can sort of dump the pressure, and I can actually dump it probably quicker than you could with just a shim stack. Because I'm using a fixed, that pill size, if I go from a 1.6 down to a 0.8, I can get 5 times less damping force as the piston moves into that area, and that's just dropping off a cliff. So, or no insert, and that's where this can benefit over, say, a shim stack or a hole configuration. You can't get. There's no such thing really as a high speed, low speed sort of hole configuration, and I've seen a few where I've seen a lot of pistons where they vary the holes, and we can get some high speed and low speed. That doesn't quite work that way with round holes. They just operate in a set fashion, both from the start to the stop. And I've got other spreadsheets that show that. Well, there's one there. So there's a whole heap of different traditional pistons and how they all behave, and they all group up very, very similar, depending on the whole configuration. But does that sort of answer that? That sort of shows.
Yep. I get it.
Mean? Yeah. So
I get it.
And again, you can have all the different type of curves depending on, again, what the driver wants and what the track wants.
Interesting. I guess my next question would be, I'm new to this. I'm going to the track. Do you have like some basic setups or next steps to make it a little easier for people like me? So I'll be like, okay, this is a bumpy track and it's 90 degrees outside.
Yep.
So do you have like basic setups or guidelines, I would like to say, where we start from?
Yeah, so on my website I have starting points for the different type of tracks, and as the new inserts come online, I'll revise that, and as I get feedback from drivers, I'll revise that. But a lot of the guys just email me and say, "Hey, this is the track," and generally what I ask from them is, all right, what is your go-to setting for that track? So is it an 8x1.2 or 8x1.3 or, the typical type pistons? And I've tested all those. So I know what that produces on a dyno. And again, on my website, I have the...
I'm bringing up your website now, actually. There we go. Dollar Hobbies, our newest sponsor on the podcast. A big shout out to them and thank you for their support. And thank you to everybody that's using that coupon code, saving 10%. That's right. You can use coupon code Lefty. If you don't know who Dollar Hobbies is yet, check them out at www.dollarhobbies.com. They have over 13,000 RC products in stock from 130 plus top brands. Whether you're a racer, basher, or crawler, or just getting into the hobby, they've got you covered. They also have an awesome brick and mortar store up there in Minnesota with an indoor carpet track that switches between on-road and off-road. Race nights, rentals, birthday parties, corporate events, the works. They have a skilled staff on hand to help with repairs and advice. For all you guys out there, if you want to show the podcast some love, you can go to dollarhobbies.com, use promo code Lefty in all caps, and you will save 10% off your order. Once again, big thanks to Dollar Hobbies for supporting the podcast. And don't forget, showing the sponsor some love shows the podcast some love. Here's your website. I'm looking at some of the shim stacks and the shims. So this is the shims right here with the relief valves. And then
yes.
You can top it up with, so you can block up the holes with grub screws as well.
That's right. That's and they're sort of bleed holes, and that's even how modern shocks work with their low speed. They can adjust their damping curves with the bleed holes. They're a very small hole. Modern shocks use far, less viscous. They use, I think, about a 2.5 weight is a typical shock oil. We're using 50 weight, so they're using a much thinner oil, and so very small variations they have will affect their damping curves quite a lot. So if you get out of there and go to home and just scroll down the bottom, scroll right down to there you go. There's some starting.
Oh, wow.
So there's some starting setups. So it does need to be updated with the newer inserts, but I try and cover the typical type of track you would find, and here where you can start. And as I get sort of feedback, so guys, and again, it depends on the temperatures. So I had a guy in Texas. He says, look, this doesn't work for me in Texas because it is stinking hot right now. So we're using much higher oils. And that's how I came about putting that thicker grey in, because red wasn't enough. His starting piston was a 6x1.2 piston, which is quite a heavy damping. So he had to put red basically in every slot, and that you weren't getting any position sensitive. So when it gets cooler, he could change it. But so I sent him over some grey ones, and he came back and going, man, this thing's unreal. He could put a red in the middle, he could put grey either side, and he's getting double the damping. So I said to him, mate, you're gonna land on a cushion of air, and he came back and said, yeah.
Was he using the same weight oil?
Yeah, I think he stepped it back. So I think he was using about an 800 CST, and I think he had to step it back a little. But yeah, again, I'm not sure what it's like in Texas at the moment, but he certainly said it was hot. But because as you get hot, as obviously heat does affect the silicon, I think about 10 degrees C, it affects it about 10%. You lose about 10% in damping every 10 degrees. It's fairly linear in its drop off as it gets a bit thinner.
Awesome stuff. Do we find that the oils last longer with this, or are they degrading the same?
No, I look, I'm biased obviously, but I've tested them. I've done a few sort of torture tests. You're running less oil, but I've seen that I can they hold the curve over a torture test better than standard oil. Silicon oil itself is quite a high tech oil. It's pretty good. You could probably argue that our silicon oil is possibly even better than what you've got in your car shocks. There are certain attributes it's got that actually makes our shocks do what they do. If we didn't have silicon oil, we probably would have developed our shocks a lot earlier, because the magic is in the oil, not the piston. people probably don't realize that, but the oil is special. So the oil itself, it doesn't degrade. It actually likes shearing, but it will shear, but it also the one downside is it will shear thin. So the faster the oil goes, the thinner it gets. So if you, again, on my side, I've got a bit where an 800 CST oil. So if you go from a 400 to an 800, you don't get a double in damping at a high speed. It's actually much, much less, because as the forces and the fluid sort of it gets faster, it thins. So it's an example is paint. You put paint on a wall with the brush. It's nice, and as you're moving the paintbrush, it's thin, but then it sticks on the wall. It's not running down the wall. So it's a shear thinning fluid. The faster it goes, the thinner it gets, as opposed to a shear thickening, which is sand, watery sand. It'll get thicker. You hit it, it'll firm up, or what they call a linear fluid or a Newtonian fluid, where it just stays linear. So our fluids act a little bit differently, but on the whole, I had one guy at our track, whether it was through laziness or not, but he hadn't changed the oil in probably 4 or 5 months. So probably because you're not aerating the oil, because you're not getting that suction, you're not. So most times you're having to change your oils because you've lost your damping. So and that's because the air's got in there and contaminated. So I find. I ran this on the weekend, and I checked it today, and it's still fine. So I know some guys are replacing their shocks every race meet. I wouldn't expect to do the same on this, because the flow is a lot less violent. It's not getting again, it's not that high velocity.
Right. I know that's kind of what I was thinking, because you're forcing it through those holes, which aerate it, and then back through those holes, which aerate it. You're pushing it through slots that slide down and come back up. So I'm thinking that it's less oil degrading as you use it.
Yeah. So the oil itself, it doesn't. So it can shear, but if you are getting into that sort of cavitation, which is the fluid is becoming a gas effectively, the fluid itself doesn't like going from liquid to gas to liquid back and forth all the time. It's the bonds are sort of you're starting to stretch the bonds a little. So you will get a degrade. The oil does degrade if it's going through that type of phase repeatedly.
All right. We actually have McBride's race here.
Oh, yeah, cool.
I think I have the BA2 of electric.
I hope it looks good.
Let's see. Let's get him started.
Are you looking to take your ride-on car to the next level? ML Toys makes it easy with plug-and-play modifications like motors, speed and brake controls, and more. ML Toys is the one-stop shop to make your ride-on car the coolest car in the neighborhood.
Thank you, Alan and ML Toys, for all your support. If you guys haven't gone over to my Power Wheels podcast yet, please go over there, hit that like and notification button. If you're a father and you're into hopping up your Power Wheels, check out ML Toys for all your support. We have a coupon code where you can save some money as well, 10%. I guess my next question for you would be, what is next for these shocks? I mean, this is pretty extensive what you've been doing. I know you spent a lot of time in it. And it's affordable compared to the other things that we see. I mean, are we limited by size? What is next? I mean, if you had, okay, here's a better question. If you had unlimited budget and I said, hey, go out and design the best RC shock, would you be able to do it?
Oh, look, with unlimited budget, anything's possible, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Well, rules would limit you because you can't use active systems. So an active system would be, the best, I guess. But there are some very, very clever shocks out there in the full size varieties. Riga comes to mind. Riga shocks are European. So the Americans are the American shocks, the Fox and all that. They're big, brutal type of shocks. They're using the external bypass and what have you. The Europeans are a little bit more technological in terms of how they do things, and apologies to either side if this offends them. But one would argue one's better than the other. The bar half, I think it was the 400. It was King Shocks that won that one, so that one ruled. But the Riga shock is Fox is caught up because they've got a thing called a live valve system, which is an active system, and that changes their valving. So that's pretty cool. Riga does everything in a mechanical sense, but they've got 250 pieces within their one shock that could be moving parts and what have you. To try and miniaturize that with the volumes that we've got, theirs is probably a $15,000-$20,000 shock package. So unlimited budget, you can do anything, but you're talking some serious amount of money. But in the 1/5, I've got a bit more room to move. I've got a few little changes on the 1/5. Possibly.
Okay.
We could possibly change maybe this low speed, high speed, but for the extra $400 or $500 you might pay, changing the oil will do the same thing. Changing the pill will do the same thing. So it's really it's that bang for buck. You want to get paying that much money to get that type of tweak. And a lot of those dials, they're only going to move 20% from your baseline. So they're not moving the shock from here to here. They're only just playing with a window, a small window. And it's
a better question probably is, what's next? What do you want to improve on your design, or what would you like to add? What are you looking for?
I'm not going to touch possibly a flexible insert. That's one, but so I could have and I've got a couple of designs there, but a flexible insert could probably give you, in the middle ride zone, you could have a firmer type of ride, but still have something that might be a little bit more forgiving if you hit some bumps. So you will get that sort of an adjustable, speed sensitive type of feel. But that it's very tricky because of that window you're working with. That piston doesn't need to move much before you're into one zone to the other, and will that give you a benefit? I don't know. That's one I've sort of parked off to the side. I have got some designs there for it, but I think keep it simple is a key thing. Otherwise, you can sort of scare people off. But the 1/5, I'd like to do something in the 1/5. The 1/5, sorry, and the 1/10. 1/10. So 1/10 will be something different again. But that's 1/8. I think I'm okay with for the moment. But I'm not going to change how the sleeve works and all the rest. That's the feedback I'm getting is really, really positive. You got your mate in Bermuda who loves it, so I don't want to disappoint him. You don't want to buy something and then find out 6 months later, I use version 2.
No, absolutely.
You're serious.
And then you can make it too complicated,
And then it becomes too complicated. Yeah, so you could, you might play with the slot positions, and that will change when they come in and out. But that's, it's not. No, I don't want to. I don't want to do that. Not at this point. I'd rather the people use what's there now, and the feedback has been great. It's just a matter of sort of getting the word out to a greater audience, I guess.
Absolutely. I most definitely have a much better understanding of this myself. I'm going to put this up so we can have a look at it. And let's see, hopefully this is a good video of McBride. This is A2 from New Zealand. You can see the track is kind of rough. It's got these, I don't know what to call them, like little small craters. I would call them high speed, small bumps or jumps over there in New Zealand.
This looks a lot like the track I've got at home.
Okay.
At the moment. But yeah, that's a typical track for what we're used to.
So I think Kyle's in the all white. I think he's running Kyosho at this race.
No, he's running an AE.
Oh, okay, so it's on AE now. Back where he kind of He started on Kyosho, then went to AE.
He's been through a few.
Oh, I know that. We've talked about that extensively. Kyle McBride, extremely talented. People just don't realize how good this guy was in his prime.
He sort of reminds me. He's a very smooth driver, so he sort of reminds me. He's Australia's sort of Jared Tebow, I'd say. He's that really. He's just super smooth. I think he just got pushed out there, but
he did.
But yeah, his car looked great in this. I think
he's in fourth now.
What? Sorry,
I believe that's him in fourth. Yeah,
in fourth. But he's a very smooth driver.
Yeah, this track is. You can see it's got a lot of little fast bumps. So I guess so. All right, here's a great example with these little fast bumps that we see. You went over it, but okay, that wasn't good.
So you can see him running through. That's him now in third.
Yep. His car does look good. It's good through these.
It did look good in this race. I thought that was. Now that's the driver. It's you give him credit too. I think he's 10-time Australian champion, so he knows how to drive.
Well, I'll give you an example. Let's go back. So coming onto this straightaway here, you can see that car hops. His car goes flat.
Yeah.
And it just stays flat through those bumps.
Yeah. It
Ooh, see? Look how his car looks good. I mean, he is a damn good driver.
Yeah.
And
you can see there he's just not hopping us around as much as these other guys. And I'm not sure where he placed in this particular a heat.
This is a A2, so
he looked good in these races, particularly. And as I said to you, this is the first time he's ever driven this e-buggy. So I thought that was pretty good. And look, he's running with. He'd only had the system for a couple of months, I think, at this point. So he hadn't had a lot of time with the actual the vehicle setups either.
I think his car looks good.
But what I guess I like with the fact that you had there he had
there he made a bubble.
That's not the shocks doing that. But he got a 10-time sort of champion, and I think he tried the shocks a few times and said, "Yep, I can work with this," and he took them on. So that's nice. He paid for them. Oh, I think Caleb was coming first in that. He's running the shocks too. That's good. So, he had a this wasn't his best race either.
I like Caleb. I like him. He doesn't hold back in his interviews.
No. He wears his heart on his sleeve. But he's a nice guy. He's dealing with him one-on-one. He's a good guy. And he's running them. So he'll be running them at ABC in Brisbane, in Pine Hills. So that'll be a good run for him.
Sweet.
So there'll be a few there. But I wouldn't necessarily. I'm not too fussed with how they place as much as
you want the feedback.
Yeah, it's more the feedback, and But ultimately, my question for him, even if he has a bad race, I'd say to him, well, look, would you have gone quicker if you'd used the standard pistons? And generally, his feedback is no. It was me, not the shocks that were holding the performance back. So. And that's the key for me, for anyone who's using the shocks. It's not necessarily whether you place or not. Did this give you a better lap time or a better experience? And that's for me is more important than whether you get a checkered flag or not.
Awesome. Well, you've definitely had a lot of hype around these. A lot of people are talking about them. Instinct RC was the guy I used to kind of find out about this and find out who you were.
Oh, right. Nick's good.
So I watched this video a couple of times. I think it's good. I've talked to some friends that have them. Obviously, they swear by them. Like Salty Joe, he knows this stuff, and I know the track in Bermuda very well, how rough it is. So when you can find a car that works good there, you're doing pretty good. I love it, man. This is what the hobby is about, right? Hobby/sport, where we get in there, we get tinkering. You went extreme tinkering, but you came up with a product that works, a different way of thinking. And I think it's awesome. I would love to see more people using this. I guess we can pitch that. Are we buying these directly from you at the SOTA website? It's actually SOTA-RC-Products.com.
Yep.
And they ship out of Australia. I know that scares a lot of people, but it shouldn't.
I'm shipping out of Australia. Yeah.
Does anybody in America have them?
I'm working to get a distributor in America or North America. So I've got someone who in Sweden who bought a bunch of product to sell at their hobby store. So I am becoming more active in finding sort of agents just to make it a little bit easier. Europe is one again that is something I need to sort of work on. But yeah, at the moment it's just here, and that was just to control things a little bit. That I do need to offload that now to others, and just helps with the shipping and things like that, and just with spare parts, you don't want to buy a $10 spare part and have to pay $15 in shipping. So it's easier if you have that more local to those guys.
Absolutely. Matt, I want to thank you for your time. I have learned a lot. Congratulations on this innovative product. It seems to be successful. You're very much into it. You're giving people a lot of advice and helping out, and very much hands-on with people, it seems like. If anybody has any questions for you, where can they reach you? On the SOTA RC Facebook page?
Yeah, just email me at the sales at SOTA RC Products.com. They can email me, or they can reach me through through that Facebook page, that messenger thing. I'm not very good with socials, I must admit, but yeah, people are getting me mainly on through that message app or the sales channel, and I get back to most people in around within a day. I may have missed some people, so if I hadn't responded to you and you had emailed me at some point,
what's the price? What's the price? I saw like 200 Australian dollars. What's that work out to be in American?
I think with your exchange rate at the moment, I think you're about 130 US.
That's not bad.
Well, it's about the same cost. I say to people, it's the same. If you look at if you were going to replace two shock sets, so your front and rear, you're paying probably more, and I'd argue you're probably getting less. And the machining on these they're not easy. Round things are very easy to machine on a CNC. Non-round things, it's a different process, and it's a lot trickier. The tolerances on these are quite extreme. So I counted up the other day, there's 71 shock set. You get 70 pieces in there with grub screws and inserts, and there's 70 pieces that you will get in that pack. You don't use them all, but you get a lot in the pack. And as I said, you will see a change in your handling or your vehicle. Whether you like it or not, you'll see a change more so than any other upgrade I can think of.
Absolutely.
I challenge anyone to have an upgrade that'll change your handling as much as this thing.
There you go. The challenge has been set.
The challenge, yeah. I can't think of any.
I'm
not
hoping
with anything made of carbon, I can tell you that, or ceramic.
Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. And I have a new understanding of the SOTA RC shock system.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming. Yeah, I appreciate you coming on. And I hope you guys out there learned something. Like I said, if you have any questions, check them out on Facebook, SOTA RC Products, SOTA-RC-Products.com. I'll leave links for that in the written description. And email him is probably better, because it's just a lot easier, at sales@SOTAProducts.com. And check it out and let us know if it's working for you guys. We definitely want to hear about that. Matt, you enjoy the rest of your day. Have fun at the ABC. Hopefully you race. Yep. And I wish you all the luck with your products in the future and whatever else you might be coming up with here shortly.
Thanks again for having me, Lefty.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
Okay. Cheers.
BeachRC.com, the racer's one-stop online hobby shop. Choose from all the popular brands and variety in stock with super fast shipping and great customer service. BeachRC.com still has the local hobby shop feel with all the benefits of the internet. BeachRC.com is the exclusive distributor for Ultimate Racing, S-Works, Pro Circuit Racing tires, Nitro Lux fuels, and Assault RC performance products. So fill up your cart and check out at BeachRC.com today.
Shout out to Sidewinder Fuels. Morgan Fuel has been collaborating with the world's top drivers for over 40 years. This has enabled them to test their fuels in many of the world's most challenging situations and take development of competition fuel to its next level. The result is Sidewinder, the market's most powerful racing fuel. This fuel is track tested and proven by national world champions, including Ryan Cavallari, Ryan Mayfield, Greg Degani, Mark Pavidis, and their current top driver is Fee Long Win, aka Lil Bump. These drivers appreciate that Sidewinder is blended perfectly for the high performance needs of competitive racing. Don't let victory slip through your fingers. Purchase Sidewinder today. Thank you, Matt, for your time. We greatly appreciate it. I hope you guys got a better understanding of how the SOTA Shock Inserts work. I know I did, so I greatly appreciate it. If you guys are interested in trying out some of these, hit them up. Check them out on Facebook or check them out on their website. Let them know you heard about it on the No Name RC podcast as well. That would help us out quite a lot. And I actually would like to try these someday and see if they make my driving any better. Maybe I'll put them in my Techno e-truggy. We shall see. But anyway, thank you guys out there, the NNRC squad. We can't do any of this without you guys. Thank you for your support. We greatly appreciate it. Also, the NNRC patrons and the YouTube members, we greatly appreciate your support. And a big shout out to our sponsors, because without sponsors showing them some love, none of this is possible as well. Shout out to J Concepts, High Tech RCD, Sidewinder Fuels, La Terra Racing, Invisible Speed, ML Toys, Dollar Hobbies, Side Piece Racing, Get Shit Done Coffee, Elite RC Productions, RC Project, Techno RC, Mayako, Beach RC, Racecraft USA, and Clinic RC. Remember, Nitro's the glory, E-Buggy pays the bills, and Lefty is out.